He had a secret client list that he used, as was the subject of our poll question on X on Friday at the Pulse of Nature. Our poll question this morning for you has to do with summer tourism. And good morning. Do you think the debate over tariffs and trade with Canada and whether we're seeing fewer Canadian tourists is hurting our local tourism economy in New Hampshire and Maine as we get into the the middle part of summer or into the heart of summer? Yes or no? Do you think the whole thing is hurting our local tourism dollars? J-Dog will have the results for you on Friday. I don't know if you have them already, Doc. Let me know.
I do.
Okay, take them away and good morning.
Do you think the Epstein client list exists? 90.9% saying yes, 9.1% saying no.
There you have it. That shows the ongoing. Hey, we have a packed show for you. We'll start with the basics. Good morning, New Hampshire, right up into Maine, York County, Cumberland, up into Portland. Good morning, New Hampshire. Our AM and FM signal over there in WTSN, and including additional FM station coverage. Lakes region, we have you covered as well. Packed 107.3 FM, 107.7 FM, Central and Southern New Hampshire. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. Hope you had a good weekend. We are looking at a pretty good start to the week. We do make back today's the day we might see some of those scattered thunderstorms moving in. We get another air change. Things are going to get on the warmer side the next few days. Hope you had a good weekend. Hey, Friday show, we really dove into it. It was quite a very important subject. We talked about the murder-suicide in Berlin, New Hampshire. The husband, police say, killed his wife in that restaurant. She was a very well thought of member of the community, vivacious, outgoing. We had the mayor of Berlin on Friday call in after executive counselor John Stephen teed this whole thing up for us. He's concerned about these magistrates on the weekend sometimes with violent criminal offenders, letting them go on personal recognizance or very low bail. The case in Berlin, New Hampshire was one of these classic, horrific domestic abuse, domestic stalking, sexual assault background, criminal violence, assaults, trespassing, and recent charges against the husband. And prosecutors were arguing passionately and vehemently against his release. And again, a magistrate released him on $5,000 bail, and police say he then went to the restaurant and killed his wife. John Stephen is back with us this morning, executive counselor, very concerned about this, as is his fellow counselor, Joe Kenny, representing the North Country. Counselor, good morning.
Good morning, Jack. Love to be back on your show. This is such an important subject. We need to make sure the public safety is looked at, and this is a case where a lot of people will be talking about for a while until we fix this system.
Well, since you've spoken up just in the last week or so, and I think the community of Berlin, based on the mayor calling in on Friday after you, is still grieving. Since then, are you looking for an official review? You've written a letter to the magistrate, to the Chief Justice of the State Supreme Court, over how some of these so-called magistrates have been looking at cases and whether or not they're exercising good judgment. What's the action to be taken now?
I'll try to be concise, but look, this is an important issue. But making these decisions, I understand they're tough decisions even on weekends. But you need competent people that care about public safety. And the reason I'm involved, this is not my district, working closely with my colleague, Joe Kenny, but on February 11th, I wrote a letter to this magistrate, Stephanie Johnson, copied Gordon McDonald, our Chief Justice. I asked him to look into this, to remove her from hearing cases, because on February 11th in Manchester, someone that was stabbed in broad daylight 7 to 9 times in front of Bunny Superette, this individual defendant that did the stabbing had a prior domestic or criminal threatening. He was let out on bail. Now this same magistrate has issued this recent decision, $5,000 bail, in a case that's the facts are so horrendous. This was so tragic, and this victim should never have been placed in this situation. This defendant should have been in jail, and that's why I'm very concerned and upset, working with my colleague, Counselor Kenny, to make sure we have some changes. But I'm asking again, and I asked last week, for the immediate removal of this magistrate from hearing any bail cases.
How does that work, Counselor? You know enough with your background legally. You've been a commissioner in the state, executive counselor now, which people should know are elected positions, 5 of them that oversee the governor and business of the state. So you're one of the, I guess kind of the board of directors of New Hampshire, if you will. I guess the question is, John Stephen, how do you've asked for the removal of this magistrate. How does that happen? Who removes the magistrate if the person doesn't want to resign?
The difference, if we had the authority in the council, we confirm appointment from the governor of the judges.
You're breaking up. You're breaking up a little bit.
Well, the governor appoints judges. We confirm judges. This is not a judge. This is a magistrate. They're hired as an employee, Jack. And this has to be done by the court in the personnel decisions. I have called the court, the administrative office, the head of the courts. They say they're taking action. They said they were taking action in February. It's not enough. This individual has to be removed from hearing any cases any longer over criminal matters. And I was a former prosecutor, as you know. This is a serious matter.
Right. Do you think, because we're having a little bit of a cell phone glitch here, do you think, Councilor Stephen, that had this magistrate not made this decision, because I think the prosecutors went back and said, don't release this husband, don't release him based on his criminal past. Do you think if the magistrate wasn't on that or someone else was, or do you think, if someone else was there or this person was held, do you think this woman would be alive today?
It's a very good possibility. This individual would be in jail and this woman would be alive today. And this magistrate made a decision that was similar to the one I saw back in February. It's so horrendous. And again,
I don't know why, J-Dog, we keep losing them. Hey, Counselor, do this because we have time. Would you mind just calling right back in, same number? Maybe we just get a cleaner reception. I don't know if you're... Yeah,
yes,
thank you.
Will.
Let's do that, J-Dog, because this is too important to garble over. It's just maybe the cell phone thing this morning. This is a case, Berlin, New Hampshire. Just a member of the community who was so loved and respected, and just one of these terrible, horrific nightmares where the background of this individual is very, very serious criminal in terms of what you call the classic terrible nightmare, domestic violence, domestic stalking, domestic beating. And, the case against him, if you look at, he had been previously, this guy's last name is Gleason, charged with sexual assault against his wife, kidnapping, domestic violence, assaults, theft, all related. And at one point, she said she was trapped for an hour and a half and afraid for her life being held by him. A magistrate initially granted his bail. During the second hearing, prosecutors, according to reports, pushed for Gleason to be held without bail. Without bail. A judge disagreed and continued the bail. And John Stephen, for one, J-Dog, I don't know if he's getting back to us. John Stephen, for one, and another counselor, Joe Kenny, is pushing for a review, pushing for this one magistrate to either resign, no longer handle cases, or by the personnel part of the courts be removed. And Counsel Stevens citing this other case in Manchester where an individual was stabbed multiple times and released on personal recognizance. And the bail question in New Hampshire, Manchester, the state's largest city, this has been a real question for a while now. And there has been some action taken. But some of these systems, especially on weekends of these magistrates, is a carryover from previous way it was being done. And again, Councilor John Stephen has a real concern. I think he's back with us. And I just wanted to kind of get this further. Councilor Stephen, you're back with us?
Yeah, can you hear me now, Jack?
Much better. You must be over. You must be over in the seacoast. You must be over in the seacoast in Rye, where for some reason they've taken away cell phones. I'm kidding.
It's funny because I'm heading to Stratham, so yes.
Counselor, again, I just want to summarize. You've asked the court to remove this individual. You've written to this magistrate, correct?
Yes, I did, February 11th, and you had asked a great question. Had she been removed at that time, would Marisol still be alive? Could be a possibility. I mean, we need to do everything we can to ensure public safety. This magistrate doesn't get it. In fact, Jack, I don't know if you know this, but the House, actually, after I wrote the letter in February, moved to impeach her. Remember, this is a magistrate, not a judge. So we, at the council, do not get to confirm these appointments. This is an employee, and they handle cases over the weekend. And now that law has changed. That won't happen after September. But she needs to be removed now. And I also called the administrative court after this unspeakable tragedy occurred. Same magistrate asked for her another time for her removal. I understand the court's looking into this, but it's an HR matter, personnel, the same excuses we've been hearing. And I don't know what's happening, but she needs to stop hearing criminal cases.
Well, I would imagine that the Chief Justice Gordon MacDonald and other judges, where you try and protect victims, children, women, especially these domestic violence, domestic situations where they get in a pattern of constant abuse and harassment. You think that they would really want to protect these victims, and they would be mortified with this particular case in Berlin, New Hampshire, and want to take action.
Yes, and you mentioned I'm a former prosecutor. For many years I prosecuted sexual assault, domestic violence, all kinds of cases. But these are facts that are egregious. And when the Berlin police went and asked for, extended no bail after a kidnapping offense, sexual assault attempt, all these offenses that this guy committed earlier, and to say $5,000 bail was enough, it's absolutely unacceptable. It's just unconscionable. And you have not heard the end of this. I'm so glad that you continue to talk about it. We obviously need to look at our bail statutes. At the end of the day, Jack, there's a lot of attempt because it's fiscally, it ends up becoming a fiscal issue when you end up keeping people in jail over the weekends for these counties.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you know what? Costs shouldn't matter when it's lives that are at stake here.
Yeah.
And I know the governor feels that way. We need to get serious on bail and protect our public. And Councillor Kenny, my colleague, he lives in the Berlin and Coos County, attended the funeral this weekend. He is someone that is working really hard to make sure that there are going to be future changes. I'm going to work with him, and we're going to do whatever we can to make sure Marisol's memory is not forgotten here.
Executive Councilor John Stephen, please keep close to the show and keep us updated on this. Thank you for the time on a Monday morning live.
Thank you, Jack.
All right, coming up, we're going to tell you about a real sad story out of Fall River, Mass. Overnight, and also President Trump turning up the heat, this time on Vladimir Putin, frustrated with the Russian leader. President Trump this week, a big announcement on more strategic arms and weaponry for the Ukraine, and we expect to hear more on that from some of our regular contributors. We're going to check in this morning as well from Doug Tangton on the economic side, World Market Advisors. We got a whole lot more. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa. By the Pulse of an H. J-Dog on the boards. Jack Heath in our capital city studios. Back in a moment.
The Boston Red Sox are back. Hampshire, live from the Outdoor Pride Studios. Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
It is I'm delighted to welcome in a colleague of John Stevens, another executive counsel he referenced in his live interview both Friday and today, and that's Joe Kenny. Joe, Councilor Kenny, a real champion of the North Country, a person of the people, well respected, and I'm delighted you're with us, joining us, Commissioner. You attended the funeral, I believe, in Berlin, New Hampshire. Commissioner Stephen, very concerned about this magistrate and violence in terms of what happened here, with a history saying this person never should have been out on bail. Thanks for joining us on the show, Councilor.
Thanks, Jack. I appreciate you continuing this story. It's a story that hits hard in the North Country. The city of Berlin's still in mourning, even though we had a wonderful mass on Sunday to honor her life. There were 40 of her relatives in the front pews, all in black. And there was a particular nun, small, very petite young nun. Every time she spoke about Marisol Fuentes, she broke down. She was crying. It was a very emotional affair, and it's something that's taken very personal for the North Country. Many people knew her. I had met her in March 21st at the chamber event up there. Very delightful young lady who had joined the Guzman hospitality franchise, had worked in various restaurants within that franchise, and was working in Berlin and got caught up into a marriage that went south very quick. She got married November of last year, and then filed for a divorce in December. Then after that, she soon after was brutally beat up and attacked by her soon-to-be ex-husband. And the trigger event really happened when he was charged once again, I believe, on July 1st for a stalking charge. And at that point, he premeditated this death. And I have new secondhand information that has tracked his last 48 hours, which I've passed information over to the Attorney General's office to make sure that they investigate this from top to bottom and from bottom to top. I want to know what went wrong. We seem to think what we knew went wrong with the magistrate and allowing that bail to be approved. But this was just a rotten deal for a beautiful young lady. That guy should have been left in jail until trial.
Well, I think your last part nails it and takes away the need for my question. And what Councilor Stephen, your colleague, explained that because this is a personnel employee versus appointed judge, for example, by you and the council, that it has to be handled through the court system. He said he's talked with the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, Gordon MacDonald. He's written a letter to the magistrate in question asking her to resign. So what can happen now with this full review? What could happen to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Well, I spoke, Jack, to the administrative court justice at the circuit court, Ellen Christo. They're doing an internal review. And I've asked specifically this case to be reviewed from top to bottom. At this point, the legislature can start filing legislation in September. If we have to make a magistrate position be approved through governor and council, or if we have to, change their roles and responsibilities. But obviously, this magistrate had no perspective or understanding of the situation in North Country. I also learned that when they have these teleconferencing interviews with the prosecutor and the defendant, that those aren't recorded. There's no minutes from that discussion. So that, to me, that has got to change, or if it's even continued practice. But somehow there was a lack of judgment. And because of that lack of judgment, myself and Councilor Stevens, my colleague, believe that there is no faith and confidence in this magistrate to carry out any further duties, and they should simply resign, because the North Country has no faith and confidence in that magistrate in conducting any other types of decisions when it comes to bail.
Let me ask you this, Councilor Joe Kenny. You mentioned you spoke to someone in the court who does the administrative, and I think you said Ellen Christo is doing a full review. Usually, my question to you is, do you know if the magistrate is on leave during this review? Because usually, for example, in a police situation, if an officer is under investigation by the state, for example, involved in even if it was a justified police shooting, the officer is sort of placed on review during that period. and then put back on, active duty. Do you know if the magistrate is still hearing, reviewing cases, or is the person on leave while they review?
It's an excellent question, Jack. It's Monday morning. I've had a long weekend, a long week, and I'm going to get to that right away.
Okay,
because
well, let us know, please.
I will let you know. And again, I appreciate you continuing the story because the North Country right now has had a lot of other tragedies in its past, but this one reminded people that, Carl Drager came back to town again for that particular day. To have a woman who was shot 4 times, that was basically hijacked as she was opening up the store, that restaurant that morning at around 9:30, and to see the horrific thing that she went through, and then to see him, the coward that he was, to go in the bathroom and shoot himself. It just seems to me that this is the end result of a poor decision that a magistrate made, and she really needs to be put on administrative leave.
That's probably the line I was looking for, administrative leave. Councilor Kenny, thank you. I know it was an emotional weekend. Thank you for the role you play. Thank you for your service. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Jack, and thank you for continuing the story. Thank you.
You got it. And really tough story, but I think you can't just let these balls drop or nothing changes, and you don't want someone else to, in a domestic violence situation like this, fall victim. 9 people losing their lives, 30 others, I guess the number keeps growing, are hospitalized. This is down in Fall River, Massachusetts, after a fire at a assisted living complex there. A terrible story. It was called the Gabriel House Assisted Living in residence, and fire happening last night. Terrible, sad story there. President Trump getting tougher in action and rhetoric against the Russian leader Vladimir Putin, trying to get something done in Ukraine. Big announcement expected. President Trump over the weekend talking about getting more sophisticated and weaponry to Ukraine to defend itself. We'll have more on that. And also, is the New England economy, the summer tourism economy here in New Hampshire and Maine, especially on the coast, are we feeling the effects of fewer Canadian tourists because of the trade stuff? Doug Tengden, one of our economic experts, world market advisors, will weigh in. I have to tell you, maybe I'm not seeing as many Quebec license plates on the seacoast, but places seem to be packed. And the jury's still out if we're seeing any slowdown at all on our local economy. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an H. We'll be back in a moment.
This is the Pulse. information. This is the Pulse of New Hampshire. Good morning, New Hampshire, live from the Outdoor Pride Studios. Now back to Jack Heath on the Pulse of New Hampshire.
A lot going on on a Monday morning. We are 14 days into July. We're about 9:34 a.m. on this Monday morning. Hope you had a good weekend. Doug Tengden around the corner. We're going to talk a little bit about the tourism side of things. We're right in the height of it this summer. Then, of course, we have our big fall. We don't want to rush it. But are we seeing impact? Are we feeling a bite or a pinch from fewer Canadian tourists? What I've seen so far, not really, but I guess more of the better, but we'll see. And also real estate. It's interesting. There was an article over the weekend I put on our social media page to promote my show, the Facebook side of things. And it was an article in a national story in England, one of the British type media, talking about a picturesque state where soaring house prices are pushing out regular, hardworking people. A beautiful place where soaring home prices of getting up near $600,000 are pushing out ordinary, hard-working people. That pretty good-looking place is New Hampshire. And that's according to New Hampshire, and the price of homes still holding here. And, you think that you think on the one hand, it's like you're in the desert, and are you imagining things? Are you seeing a mirage? It seems like if you look at some communities like Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Rye, New Hampshire, are we seeing some of the homes sit there longer that have been on the market for 30 or 40 or 50 days? And that seems like a long time here. But I got news for you. In other parts of the country where there's more inventory and the housing market is bad, to say the very least, sometimes you got to list your home for 60, 70, 80, 90 days before you get a bite. And here, if people put their home on the market and it sits more than a few weeks, everyone panics, like, what's going on? I haven't gotten 3 offers over asking price. What's happening? How come my house isn't selling? It's been 3 weeks. And guess what? Most parts of the country, the old day, I remember the older days here in New England, you put your home on the market, it was about a half year, 3 to 6 months before you got a new buyer and closed and moved. It wasn't like this 3 or 4 week thing. So I don't know where it goes. We'll find out. It's interesting. I heard Maggie Goodlander, representative 2nd District, on with Mike Pomp, who's back from vacation. Hope Mike had a good time off. Probably worked in the house knowing him, or practice some play and entertainment stuff, but he does great stuff. Good to have him back. Studio One in Dover. Good morning, Mike. And I'm not going to comment on his interview in terms of any thoughts politically, because Mike just had a good interview with Maggie Goodlander. We'll get her back on my show soon. But talking about the big, beautiful bill. And it's interesting because the midterm elections, it may seem like a long way away from, a year from this fall. But guess what? From a political calendar point of view, not that far away. And really, here in New Hampshire, in that Senate race, and maybe the 1st District congressional race, maybe the 2nd congressional district in which Maggie Goodlander is the incumbent, it's going to be a debate over this big, beautiful bill. The irony is, a lot of the parts of this bill, when it comes to healthcare, Medicare, Medicaid, and the stuff you're hearing about, like these rural hospitals, the impact of the bill doesn't kick in until 26, 27 and going forward. So you won't know the real impact. And it's amazing, the political, I guess, spin masters are all trying to, including members of Congress or candidates running, are all trying to wordsmith this. And who can explain the best a big 1,000-page bill? Number one, there's a lot of tax cuts in that bill. And I'm going to point out what I think is more true than not. Democrats are very good at these huge, glittering generalizations. Like in the last couple of years, any Republican running for any office, any Republican, they're going to ban abortion. Ban abortion. It's all we heard about for about the last 2 to 3 years. Ban abortion, every race. Until that got old and people realized we have a law in New Hampshire now that it's up to the states. No restrictions on abortion through the first full 6 months. No restrictions at all. So Democrats are very good, for example, when talking about tax cuts. Look up the facts. If you're a middle income earner, the Trump tax cuts are extended. You're not going to see a tax increase. I don't think you're a rich person if you're in the middle working class area, but Democrats will say, oh, the tax cuts only benefit the rich. Yeah. Okay. And on healthcare, it's a very disingenuous thing to say that everyone's going to lose their health care, but that's what you're going to hear. Oh, you're going to lose your health care if you vote Republican. They're going to take away all your health care. That's not true. It's just like one of these political lines. Now, the question is a work requirement, if you're getting sort of public health care, Medicaid, is a work requirement taking away your health care? That's a debate that's worth having. Is it? 11.8 million people are going to lose their Medicaid. Well, if they can work, they're not going to lose their Medicaid. Medicare, I don't think people are going to start losing their health care. Now, they might, and we don't know right now. And the race in the midterm is going to be who can explain this to the sort of middle lane, the independent voter. Who can explain this the best? Talk about tax cuts versus tax increases. Not everyone's going to lose their health care, but who can explain this? Because if you just say Republican is going to take away your health care and the Republican doesn't have a good answer, people, it's like if someone started saying that person robbed the bank, that person robbed the bank, that person robbed the bank. After a while, people think the person robbed the bank, unless that person says, no, I didn't rob the bank. This is where I was. I didn't rob the bank. I ran for office and I wasn't going to ban abortion. I ran for office and I'm not running to take away your health care. Who can explain this the best? And what are the impacts? We don't know. You start to hear that hospitals will be closed. And again, all these scare tactics, no one really knows the reality. And I think someone should try to get to the bottom of it. The other thing that can happen is Congress, after the midterms, can start looking at areas, if hospitals are going to close, how to keep them open. They can appropriate. They can do separate legislation. So I just think that the midterms, it's going to be a challenge for Democrats because these cuts in healthcare or adjustments like work requirements, they don't take effect until after the midterm election. So how are you going to get everyone all worked up if they don't feel it? I submit that the midterms, in large part, despite all the feelings about President Trump and his second term, are going to come down to three things: the economy, the economy, the economy. That's what it's going to come down to. And if most people feel the economy is roaring along pretty good, if they feel they're doing better, then I think you're not going to see a big blue wave. Conversely, because things are still wicked expensive, inflation, things are still too expensive. If people feel the economy's going the wrong way, working against them, and they're not getting ahead, I think you could see a sizable, even here, definitely here in New Hampshire, more of a blue wave than a purple or a red wave, because people are going to vote on the economy. If they feel things are going well and they feel good about their position, they're going to probably vote for more of the same. The other thing we don't know in New Hampshire, which is different than other states, is we see this political sort of two-personality voting reality, like a dichotomy of our reality, where independent voters who decide elections here more than Republican and Democrat, like Democrats in our federal seats in Congress and in the Senate, and they like Republicans running the state house. And we've seen that for several elections now. It's been a while, just trying to think aloud here, since a Republican won a congressional seat. And it's been the trend that Democrats are doing well representing New Hampshire in Congress federally, and Republicans have been running the state house. Governor Sununu was in there for 4 2-year terms. Kelly Ayotte's running for another term, no doubt, and she doesn't even have a Democrat challenger yet. So it's interesting. We're going to see this split voting personality. But when we come back, Doug Tengden, World Market Advisors, will weigh in. Are we seeing a pinch in terms of tourism from fewer Canadian visitors over the trade tariff stuff? And when are we going to hear more on the tariff side of things? We'll hear more from our Rory O'Neill, NBC News Radio National correspondent, right when they've been trying to get more of the relief and the victims found in Texas, in that catastrophic flood zone of the Guadalupe River. More heavy rains affecting the rescue effort. We'll be back with all of the above. Hey, Alexa. Hey, Google. Play the Pulse of an H. Jack Heath, J-Dog on the boards. We are back in just a few.
New
Canadian tourism dollars here because of the trade tariff stuff? Fewer Canadians? Are they boycotting? Still booing during the national anthem at sporting events? Well, I'm sorry, the NHL season's in between. But are we seeing fewer Canadian dollars? Doug Tengden will weigh in just a moment. And the economy overall, I don't know. I just get, well, obviously doing the show, we're public policy. We talk about things like business. Oh, by the way, tomorrow, great interview to promote. This is a good one. The owner of Novell Ironworks on the Seacoast. They do a lot of like real building stuff, like real heavy duty structural metal iron. What about the tariffs and what about business? What are they seeing? Holly Novoleski is, she ran for Congress, but Holly's going to join us, the owner. And that's if you're going down Greenland on 95, you'll see the Novell Ironworks, big company. They do great stuff. I hear good things. We're going to hear more from her tomorrow about the business, about the company, and about the economy. World Market Advisors Doug Tengden joining us on this Monday morning. I think I hear Doug. Good morning, Doug.
Good morning, Jack.
I heard something. How are you?
I am great. What a beautiful weekend. We had a Proudy weekend this last weekend. Big fundraiser for the Dartmouth Cancer Center.
Yeah, awesome.
Yeah.
Hey, Doug. Well, tomorrow will be interesting to hear Holly because they do commercial building, big iron stuff. It'll be interesting to see on the tariff stuff and if there's any impact or if things are booming or slowing. But let's talk about before we get to the general economy. Just this question we've had this morning. It's our poll question up on X as well at the Pulse of an H. Do you think we're seeing the Canadian pinch or not in tourism dollars on the Seacoast right now, July 4th on? I'd say no. Maine, not sure. I say no. I don't really see it. Obviously, more tourism dollars. You don't know the Airbnbs. You know, the Lakes region is mobbed. Seacoast is mobbed. I guess we're missing some Canadian boycotters. They're not good tippers anyway. No, I'm kidding. But what do you think? Are we seeing a real pinch or not?
Well, the statistics say that we are. Border crossings for May were down approximately 20% year over year. According to the Wall Street Journal, Old Orchard Beach, which was singled out by name by Justin Trudeau when he got on and told Canadians, we can boycott the United States, specifically Old Orchard Beach. Apparently, their bookings are down something like 10 to 20%. Mm-hmm. Canadians are 40% of their visitors. In New Hampshire, Canadians are 5 to 10% of our tourism revenues, and just take the upper range of that. If border crossings are down 20% and they're 10% of our revenues, well, then that would be a 2% hit, and that's not nothing. But the rest of the economy could be up 2% quite easily and make up for it. So I don't think we're seeing a pinch per se, but maybe it's a little less mobbed.
Yeah, we may have to get through the season to see. Another thing that doesn't really impact us here. I'm curious. You probably, like me, have heard that Florida, maybe for about 4 reasons, not one. More inventory, cost of insurance, Mother Nature, and some other things. Very slow in parts, very slow real estate market compared to New England. But I'm wondering if some parts of the Gulf Coast of Florida, a lot of Midwesterners and Canadians had been buying up and getting a second home for the winter in Florida. I'm wondering if the Florida real estate is seeing fewer Canadians buying homes there. I haven't read or heard any stories in the business article. I'm just wondering.
No, I've read stories about Florida being a little bit slower. Mainly, I think it's weather related. They've had a series of weather incidents there that have slowed things down, and particularly insurance related. So if you can't get insurance, you're not going to buy the house, and people are putting insurance restrictions on their offers, that their offers contingent on being able to get insurance, and that used to be, didn't used to be a thing. Now it's much more of a thing. So I think that may be an issue. I don't think Canadian purchases of Florida real estate is going to be a major issue, but I could be wrong. It's not something I've looked into.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was looking at a British. One of the English sort of, semi-tabloid, but, I guess you could say that as CNN and Fox, all the media today, but, their websites. And they had an article, picturesque state in America. Housing is getting so expensive. Hardworking people are forced to flee. And the picturesque state is New Hampshire. Median home price is getting up near $600,000, and a lot of hardworking people can't live there anymore, is the article.
Yeah, well, New Hampshire has been the poster child for hardworking people for a long time.
But their headline, their headline
is
You know,
I think
basically, you can't. If you don't make enough, if you don't have millions, you can't live there. It's sort of the inference of the headline.
Well, I live in the in sort of the poster child for NIMBYism. They increased the lot size requirement a few years ago up here in the People's Republic of Hanover, and you could solve the housing problem just by reducing the lot size requirement. Reduce it from 10 acres to 3 acres, at least. Where I am, or other places, they could reduce it to an acre and allow people to subdivide. And that would allow supply. The solution to housing isn't low interest rates. I'm sorry, that's just going to increase demand and push up prices. The solution is supply.
Yeah, it is, especially in the Northeast. I was laughing, Doug, again over the weekend, just looking at some stuff. There's a German tiny home company. I don't have it in front of me in my notes, and they're making this product where in a very small section, even like on a 3/4 acre lot, you could put behind your home. It's more of a vertical tiny home versus wide. But it's like 700 or 800 square feet, $150,000, all the bells and whistles. You could put it right in next to your tool shed and wouldn't even take it up much of your backyard. And the question is, would communities allow that here? And I know there's legislation for that affordable, the kind of doing more sort of in-law homes behind your property so family members, you could have another home or a source of income. I don't know, but this was an interesting one because it's more vertical than horizontal.
Yeah, and particularly if you can bring modular construction technology and not have it be a double wide, some of these things are quite innovative. I will say that just the larger statistics show that productivity growth in home building has actually been negative over the long run, and that's really the source of that's the answer to your affordability is. Everything else is more productive. It's much more productive in financial services, much more productive in radio. I know you're working three jobs and 32 hours a week, 32 hours a day. Excuse me, Jack.
No, don't go that far, please.
But productivity throughout the economy is higher, except in home building.
Yeah,
where it's actually been negative, and that's the answer is in supply.
Yeah, and also young working professionals I've talked with, and I define that kind of like J-Dog's bracket, maybe even younger, believe it or not, kind of that 30 to 40, 25 to 35, 40 range, but certainly in the 30s. And many of them will say it's in Rockingham, Hillsborough, different parts of New Hampshire, Lakes region. They literally are working. Some of them are making six figures, say 110 grand a year gross, and they can't afford to buy a home. And
J-Dog is the poster story for 36 hours a day.
Well, J-Dog is, but his home, he's taking over the radio building here. But my point is, these younger folks are telling me the problem is they not only can't afford to buy, they can't afford to rent, because usually when home prices are very high, renting something is an alternative solution. They're saying rent is also through the roof. So they're double whammy. They can't rent in Portsmouth because it's $5-6 grand a month to rent, and they can't buy because it's $6 or $7 or $8 grand a month to buy a home.
That's right. And just to put a period on that, my son just recently moved down to Oklahoma City to work at the Air Traffic Controllers Academy, and his rent $1,000 a month.
Yeah,
for a 2-bedroom.
And I don't think about Oklahoma City. I think they just went the home of the Thunder, J-Dog, the NBA. Your son could probably go, if he stays there 10 years, probably buy a beautiful home that would be $1.3 million here in Hanover for about $380,000 there.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It's a different.
But you know what?
Different regulatory climate.
I have someone close to me and my own family moved to Ohio just because of the real estate. They were in Charleston, South Carolina, and it just started booming 10, 15, 20 years ago, like the seacoast of New Hampshire. Their home on a golf course, Mount Pleasant, they get up near $1 million. They said, you know what? We're going to go put 2/3 of it in the bank and buy a home for $350,000 in Ohio.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right. So
there you go.
The solution is supply. When you talk to the political candidates, say, what are you going to do about the supply of housing?
Yeah.
Don't tell me about jawboning the Fed to lower interest rates. Yeah. That's not going to help.
All right. Good stuff, Doug. World Market Advisors. Good range of subjects. Thank you, Doug.
Jack, you have a great week.
Hey, congrats again, Phil and Julie Tobbs. Swim with a Mission. They had a huge dinner Saturday night in Manchester, more than 700 people. But their paintball event, they raised millions this weekend for veterans, not just Navy SEALs and the Naval SEAL Museum and the but all veterans because they support it. And our next focus is going to be up in Franklin, New Hampshire, the campus for veterans. Maureen Beauregard, Easter Seals, Veterans Camp, but Easter Seals leading the way. This is going to be a real campus. This is going to be a model for the nation, on how to integrate, put nonprofits together, all the resources, allow veterans to be with veterans, housing if they need it, all kinds of peer support, positive stuff, different therapies if they want, horse equine, canine, just beautiful buildings, professional stuff, a home for veterans right here in New Hampshire and Franklin coming soon. They're already opened up some of the housing. Speaking of affordable housing. All right. Hey, Google. Hey, Alexa, play the Pulse of an Age. Coming up, we'll hear from the mayor of Berlin and a whole lot more right after this.